morning classmate, we're here to report the Chapter 5 about law on sales, agency, and credit transactions.
So, the contract of sale. An agreement between a seller and a buyer. So, the seller agrees to deliver or sell something. Nagdepende na nimo if unsa inyo ang agreement. For example, an item, na buyer na seller. So, maghimo mo contract ana. Then, mag-kuan mo ang consent. Then, pag gumana na, naana siya mga date, mga detailed explanation nga ibutang sa contract agreement ninyo nga both parties maka-agree on that particular item. So, some of characteristics of the contract of sale. Number 1, consensual. A consensual contract is a contract that is founded on the mere unanimous agreement of interested parties and doesn't need to be implemented through an official procedure. So, muna siya ang one of the simply contract nga agreement. For example, kanang mupalit ka og unsa imong ganahan paliton sa tindahan, then maingon ka nga unsa lang nga item, consensual na siya, like dili na kinahanglan nag-official paper, like official procedure na kinahanglan pa nga mo sign mo anang kontrata kay by unanimous moingon na makalito nga mopalit ko. So means kung mayon ka nga po mopalit ko, makagama na din kag contract na by means of consensual. The next is bilateral. Bilateral contract is a contract in which both parties exchange promises to perform. So example ni kay both parties, the party A and party B. Ang party A o party B, nagama sila promises, contract promises nga sila rasay maka-oblige nga contract ilahang gigama. So for example, ang party A nag-promise siya sa party B, then ang party B nag-promise siya sa party A. So silang duha na sila promises nga sila rasay mo oblige. Sa party A na siya promise sa party B, sa party B na siya promise sa party A. The third one is principal. So, principal contract means an agreement between the project co and one or more principal contractors or relating to the provision of all or part of the project work, such as amended, supplemented, or replaced from time to time in accordance with this agreement and the collateral agreements. So, a contract of principal is mura siya og kanang independent contract. For it to validly exist, there is no necessity for it to depend upon the existence of another valid contract. So wala ra siya murag something nga mag-sign pag both parties kay wala ra siya independently contract naman. So ma-exist siya without the another or like upon another valid contract. The fourth one is onerous. Onerous contract, a contract in which the unavoidable cost of meeting the obligations under the contract exceed the economic benefits expected to be received under it. An example of this is a lease on a property that is no longer necessary but cannot be sublet. The fifth is commutative contract. So commutative contract is one in which the contracting parties give and receive an equivalent or reciprocal value. In other words, the contracting parties give and take something of equal value. Like for example, nasa agreement nga ang ilang value or item nga ilang makuha ng agreement like the same or like the same equivalent of value. Like for example, ring. Muhatag ang party A og ring. Then kung unsay pili cost anang ring, same or gihapon nga value ang hatag ni party A sa party B. The nominate contract. So nominate contract is a type of contract that is recognized and enforceable by law. So for example, kay mga bangka, the tenant and the landlord. So paano na siya, like under law na siya, like nagina sila obligation silang duha. kanang nasa obligation silang duha nga buhaton nila kung unsa ilahang buhaton, like each parties, like for example ang landlord siya mo muhatag og safety environment sa usa ka tenant. Then tenant siya mo pay ana sa landlord, like kung sa ilang kasabutan mo na siya under the enforceable by law. The last one is transmissive of ownership, a simple contract. So ang transmissive ownership is a contract used to transfer ownership of something sold by one person. So for example, the seller and the buyer. For example, ka ng mga supplier, then ikaw kay mga kon ka kanang sari-sari store imuhang kuan business. So na supplier sila may musell mo ana nga product, ikaw po yung buyer nga mukuha ana nga product, then na may contract ana nga agreement nga like buying and then selling. Muna siya simple transmissive of ownership, like ipasa niya ang product sa imuha. Then muna siya agreement. So we have the requisites of the contract of sale. The first one is consent. So consent, basic understanding na is like kung sa inyong understanding both parties, like kung sa inyong agreement, like gani mag-consent mo siya, sa ka-party na naman. The next is, payaning husband and wife. Muna, kaning duha, husband and wife, the guardian, agents, executors, and administrators, and so on, like any other special disqualified by law, muna siya kanang not like disqualified na taga-consent kay kung naman siya like kaning agents naman siya like promises code, so more siyang makalubas sa tatang. So, parehara sa husband and wife, the guardian, and so on. Then the second one is object or subject matter. So, subject matter is like a person or a thing, like doing something. While object is like having something done to do with, like ako, may subject matter, din na ako'y buhatan nga kinahanglanon. Muna ako ang sa object matter ang akong kinahanglang buhaton. The third one is cost or consideration. So, musunod mo agreement, like musunod mo kontrata, naman dyan ay why. Naman dyan ay pangulang nganong nag-contract mo. So, muna siya cost or consideration. Why or nganong gabuhat mo inyong agreement.
Sales of personal property payable in installments. Article 1484. In a contract of sale of personal property, the price of which is payable in installments, the vendor may exercise any of the following remedies. So first, exact fulfillment of the obligation should the vendor fail to pay. To fail to pay is a breach of contract. Like for example, namoy kasabutan duha nga bayaran kaniya nga exact date, and then pag abot na sa date, then wala ka mabayad, so tuman, and that is a breach of contract. So second and third are the same. So cancel the sale should the vendor's failure to pay cover 2 or more installments. Then foreclose the chattel mortgage on the claim sold if one has been constituted should. In this case, he shall have no further action against the purchaser to recover any unpaid balance of the price. After the retro sale, the ownership of the property sold is immediately transferred to the vendor, a retro subject only to the repurchase by the vendor, a retro within the stipulated period. So, Mr. John Michael Aldiger is an owner of a real property where his 5-star hotel is also erected. By reason of his dire need of money, he sold his real property together with a 5-star hotel to Don Victor Johnson. By this reason, Mr. Aldiger executed a contract of sale of his real property together with the hotel, but with the right to repurchase. However, no period for the redemption of the property is specified in an agreement until when should Mr. Aldiger have the privilege to redeem his property from Don Victor Johnson. So in this legal opinion, Mr. Aldiger may redeem his property within a period of 4 years from the date of the contract in the absence of any agreement.
Contract of agency. When a person employs another person to do any act for themselves or to represent him in dealing with third persons. So for example, sabotable naman siya, so ako na lang siyang i-examplean. So example, naay three persons, the first, second, and third persons. The first person asked to the second person to do the job for him. And then the second person employ or hire a person to do the particular job nga gihatag sa first person. Muna siya yung contract of agency. Mag-hire ka og laing tao nga makapuli sa imuha, like mo-represent sa imuhang job.
Simple loan or mutuom. Article 1956. No interest shall be due unless it has been expressly stipulated in writing. It is kind of contract for the loan of goods which will be used or consumed by the borrower to be repaid with goods of an equivalent quantity and quality. It involves the return of the equivalent only and not the identical thing tungod kay ang nanghulam nagakuha sa panagiyan niini. Example for this bank deposits are in the nature of a simple loan or mutuom nga kinahanglan bayaran kung gikinahanglan na sa depositor. Pactum Commissarium. Article 2088. The creditor cannot appropriate the things given by way of pledge or mortgage or dispose of them. Any stipulation to the contrary is null and void. So, the elements of Pactum Commissarium are as follows. 1. Una, kinahanglan adunay usa ka kabtangan nga giprinda pinagis sa seguridad alang sa pagbayad sa principal nga obligasyon. Ang ikaduha, kinahanglan adunay usa ka stipulasyon alang sa automatic nga paggahin sa nagpautang sa butang nga giprinda sa kaso sa dili pagbayad sa principal o obligasyon sulod sa gitakda nga panahon. Liability of the principal and the agent. Article 1883. If an agent acts in his own name, the principal has no right of action against the person with whom the agent has contracted. Neither have such as persons against the principal. So, kung nagtrabaho ka sa laing negosyo, the principal and you act on behalf of that business as an agent. If you make a mistake, hinungdan kay injury to sila or kanang third party or damage the property of another person or business, kana nga principal mahimong malupag ka sa manubag sila sa imong action tungod kay naglihok ka alang kanila.
Real estate mortgage. So mortgage is a loan financing the purchase or maintenance of a property, land, or other types of rental properties. So ang loan financing nagpalit o pagminta sa usa ka propiedad o yuta o iban pa. So next, what is commodation? Commodation gratuitous loan of movable property to be used and returned by the borrower. So usa ka walay bayad nga loan sa movable property nga gigamit nga gamiton o giuli sa hulam. The next, distinguish legitimate labor contracting from labor-only contracting. So contracting legitimate job contractor provides service while the labor-only contractor provides only manpower. So ang lehitimong contractor sa trabaho naghatag og mga serbisyo samtang ang labor lamang ay contractor naghatag lamang og manpower.
What constitutes substantial investment? Substantial investment means where a person investment in an incorporated entity. If the person or entity controlled by the person beneficially owns more than 25% of ownership interest in the unincorporated entity. What are the actions to breach of contract sales? So first action for breach of contract sales, we have action for the price, damage, for non-acceptance, damage for non-delivery, specific performance, remedy for breach of warranty. What is the defect considered revelatory? The defect of revelatory when it renders things useless or its use inconvenient that must be presumed that buyer would not have to think had known of the defect.
What does right to control mean? So right to control is like you have the authority to someone, like over someone. Like for example, an employer and an employee. An employer have the control over an employee. So an employee is ano siya, mubo siya sa employer. So means na siya may mo like muhatag ang employer of various jobs like unsa lang niyang trabahoon kina may control ang employer niya like magtrabaho ba siya magkuan ba siya forms niya sa mga procedures niya kina may authority ang employer over sa employee mo siya right to control like na siya authority over someone or something.
Legal independent contractor is a self-employed person to perform work for or provide services to entity as a non-employee. So, for example, from the word independent is self-employed ka nang sila ray makakuha sa ilang mga puhunan, like wala nag-authorize nila ba. So, mga example nga legal contractor are mga writers, drivers, health workers, and yoga instructors.
The most distinctive feature of an agency relationships is the agent's power to bring about business relationship between his principal and the third persons. Main characteristics of an agency relationship are that it is fiduciary. It involves trust and confidence. Ang mga balawad sa ahensya nang dumala niini. Ug kini usa ka consensual nga relasyon. Agency relationships are relationships in which the principal gives legal permission to an agent to act on their behalf. The purpose of sa usa ka relasyon sa ahensya alang sa usa ka principal nga adunay usa ka ahente nga mahimong molihok alang kanila. They are used in the principal's absence sama sa usa ka ahente sa real estate nga nagtrabaho alang sa usa nga nangita og bag-ong balay.
Them